Look, in the 2000s, Panerai was an unstoppable force. Cool guys and tough guys wore Panerais, but they've been in steady decline ever since due to a mix of bad PR and uncreative releases. Fortunately, there's one brand that brings a very fresh take to that look and does it even better. This is a review of what I consider to be their best release.
About 5 years ago, I decided I wanted a beefy sport watch, right as big watches were going out of style, mind you. I wanted something deliberately oversized, something that was a slight rejection of what's considered good taste in horological circles, but not so ugly that only Jake Arabo could love it. My shortlist included Panerai Luminor, of course, Roger Dubuis Easy Diver, actually amazing value right now, Geneva Seal Movements, Breitling Super Ocean, or Chronomat or Chronomatic 49 maybe, U-Boat Classico or Chimera, just to show that I truly do not belong at a Red Dot meetup, or the Anonimo Militaire, definitely the least recognizable of all these brands. All 5K or less, all unique in their design language. After probably an excessive degree of thought and research, I actually ended up going with the Anonimo over all the others. Here's why. To start off with, the basic stats of this piece are nearly perfect given the goal, with it being in the large watch category without going overboard or being cartoonish. We've got a diameter of 43.5 millimeters, a height of 14.5, so it's big, but it's not unwieldy. 316L steel, cushion shape. Here we've got the off-white Panda dial. It also comes in a black Newman dial or this kind of green khaki matte dial. I really like the cream dial the most. It feels the most Italian to me. It's water resistant to 120 meters. It has sapphire crystal, AR coating, hands are Super Luminova, this patented crown protection system at 12 o'clock, more on that later. The movement is simple. It's got a Slita 300 with a Dubois Dupraz chronograph on top of it, made exclusively for Anonimo, which I realize sounds nice, but it's not incredible. It's got a power reserve of 42 hours, which any Slita has, frequency of 4 hertz, and a 30-minute counter at 9 o'clock. Strap is this aged black Mohawk calf leather, so stats-wise, it's fine. There's nothing impressive or groundbreaking, and it's not glaringly weak. And yes, that includes the movement. Modular Slita is definitely what you would typically expect for a chronograph under $5,000. But let's rewind a second. How did we even get here? What is this brand? Why are they making watches that look like Panerais? Is this some copycat homage brand I found on DHgate? Actually, quite the opposite. At least at one point in history, Anonimo had more Panerai DNA in it than Panerai itself. Here's how we actually got there. In the 1990s, Panerai, an Italian watchmaker, was popularized by Sylvester Stallone and since gained a bit of a cult following, and at the time was one of the most iconic watch names in the entire watch world. They were subsequently purchased by Richemont, a luxury goods holding company. This formerly Italian brand then moved all of their operations from Florence, Italy to Switzerland, where they could purportedly focus more on their Swiss watchmaking. But when they did that, they left behind the entire team of Florentine watchmakers and their former CEO, Dino Zé, a former Italian Navy officer who had been at the helm of Panerai since 1972. So he had horological credentials, military credentials, and a history of taking a brand from 0 to 100. With all of this talent now languishing, Dino, along with one of the partners at Salvatore Ferragamo, a man named Federico Massachesi, decided to found another watch company called Anonimo in 1997. This new company would preserve the ethos of Florentine watchmaking, i.e. those cushion cases we know and love, and essentially pick up right where Panerai left off with all of its old staff. That is, a bunch of watchmakers who were super adept at making tonneau case watches with a bit of Italian flair. So at that point, at the formation of this new company, Anonimo was more Panerai than Panerai. Their first watch, called the Millimetri, was designed to military standards and waterproof to 1,000 meters, which set the tone for this brand as more industrial and tougher than their estranged sister brand. The first Militaire model, the seed of the watch I'm holding here, soon followed in 2001. They patented this crown locking system you see here, according to them, to ensure the watch's functionality in all environments. I really don't think it's necessary, even to professional divers, but like the crown guard on the Panerai Luminor does look cool. And in all fairness to Anonimo, rubber gaskets are not impermeable on their own, and a crown guard could help in certain scenarios. So they iterated on this rugged dive watch face for many years, releasing tons of tweaks, tons of limited editions, without ever quite landing on a design that truly snapped and they could feel comfortable settling on. Lots and lots of minor experimenting, which built out a big catalog and at least felt somewhat cohesive with an overall tough Italian vibe. Fun fact, during this time, Anonimo released the first ever dive watch with a fully bronze case back in 2006, before Panerai, who normally gets credit for popularizing bronze. Fast forward many years later to 2013, they, like Panerai before them, are also acquired by Richemont, a seemingly redundant purchase. Anonimo then debuted new branding using the Swiss Alps, a mountain range that is partly in Italy and partly in Switzerland, symbolizing the union of the two countries. So now you've got a brand with Swiss movements, but with cases still being made by Anonimo Ferenzi's master case maker, Gianluca Gervasi, and of course, the Italian-flavored design. Should be a perfect combo. But this move was actually too much hand-wringing among Anonimo enthusiasts. Many people adored the pre-merger brand, called Anonimo Ferenzi, and decided they were not at all keen on this new one, now called Anonimo SA. In an era where much love goes to independence, there is this sad romanticism to it. Yet another adorable, quirky little company bought up by the big bad conglomerate. Now, I am a big proponent of independent brands myself, and I don't always love how Richemont runs its companies, so I should probably be in this former group. But let's take a look at the actual watches. That pre-Richemont brand was messy. That old logo sucked. Very bad. New logo looks great. Italian company made a million versions of everything, which for some collectors, I guess, made the brand fun, but they just kind of look janky to my eyes. Unpolished, like the design was rushed out before they could fine-tune it. And look, I know complaining about date windows is like such a thing for people, but look at this. What is this? Date at like 345, and here it is cutting off just 20% of a numeral. This is not by design. It's because the movement isn't big enough for the case, and they're either too lazy or more likely too cash-strapped to fix it. Branding made in Italy may be a mark of pride for clothes and leather sofas, but what we need is more engineering prowess, which is necessary when you're machining tiny engines with tight tolerances. This whole journey just reminds me a lot of Lamborghini's purchase by Volkswagen. Some people don't like the new Lamborghini because it doesn't have the levels of insanity that old Lambo had. They're just dressed up Audis. But that original company was also constantly cash-starved, changing ownership all the time, and eventually had to file bankruptcy. Then Volkswagen came along, scooped them up, and soon after, they released the Gallardo. It was a game-changing car in the supercar world that sold a 5-digit number of units, which was miraculous. Lamborghini was clearly better off under Volkswagen, and if this hadn't happened, yeah, the brand could have kept doing its off-the-wall designs with no guardrails. But it also may not even exist in 2025. So sometimes these mergers are necessary. And as we can see from Chanel taking ownership stakes in FP Journe and MB&F, it doesn't always have to be at the sake of sacrificing the brand's DNA. The watch I'm reviewing today, the Militaire, was supposed to be Anonimo's Gallardo, the watch that took them from a little niche brand to a mainstream audience. So, was it? Like the Gallardo, the new Anonimo designs come off to me as such polished versions of what came before them. One critique is that they've clearly abandoned their tool watch roots, but for me, that actually makes me like the brand more. Personally, I really don't go in for the cosplay side of watch collecting. Once you get out of the forums, you realize this is just mechanical jewelry. So it actually bothers me if a watch looks too much like a real tool. Feels oddly disingenuous. Gives me LARPing vibes. I want it to look a little playful, a little unnecessary. I think that's cool. I love that it comes on this distressed suede strap so that no one thinks I'm trying to play pretend with a dive watch. Gives it a little more sprezzatura. By the way, Anonimo's lineup includes more than just the militaire, so not everything's 44mm. And their website is straightforward about their movements. No faux in-house shenanigans. How cathartic. So, is this the perfect oversized watch? Maybe, but I do have some critiques. Chrono pushers. The pushers on the chronograph are a little squishy. While drawbacks is a highly respected chronograph manufacturer who has made chronographs for Audemars Piguet, for their past offshore, some movements for Richemont, do not think this module on top of a Sellita is going to live up to that bar. Crown guard. While I much prefer the crown guard at 12 o'clock as it is here, as opposed to where it originally rested at 6 o'clock, when it's here I can actually pop it open with my ulna if I apply pressure in the right way. It happens rarely, but I still find it funny because the whole image of that crown guard is that it's so secure. Power reserve. The power reserve is molto piccolo, but it's standard Sellita. Because this watch doesn't have a date function, it's super easy to set. So a lower power reserve isn't a big factor. Plus, I'm not always wearing this watch, so even if it became weekend proof or something, I'd still find myself needing to set it regularly. A 70-hour power reserve would not change anything, for me at least. I feel like I'm almost grasping at straws to think of drawbacks here. Almost. Here's the real drawback. This is the big issue that, for some of you, is going to overshadow everything I said. It is that, sadly, this watch was not Anonimo's Gallardo moment. Maybe solid design, but it needed branding. It needed celebrity endorsements. It needed to be accompanied by a robust marketing budget, because now Anonimo appears to be a zombie brand, abandoned by Richemont, with no one even updating their Instagram or returning emails, but with some semblance of life still emanating from deep within its core, while its limbs and stare remain cold. That makes purchasing one of these pieces higher risk. Sellita movements are very reliable and easy to service, and drawbacks is extremely reputable, so the chronograph should be solid. I've had one minor issue with it not holding a charge, which a watchmaker friend was able to fix handily. Thanks, Rap. But here's some good news. They say that this chronograph is made exclusively for Anonimo, so this may lead one to believe that there are parts in here that, if they break, make you the proud owner of a lumpy bracelet. But a watch under $5,000 is not going to have a custom-made anything, especially a chronograph, one of the more challenging complications to make. That whole exclusive part just applies to that bit of branding on the rotor. No brand selling 4-digit price watches in small numbers has the budget for something more elaborate, which means even if your chronograph breaks, a watchmaker can still get parts and you can still fix it. And yes, this is the exact same movement that Panerai used for the PAM 01109 and the PAM 01303 Luna Rossa and the gold PAM 01111. It's just a Sellita base versus an ETA, which are interchangeable. The only real difference is that Panerai tried to pass theirs off as fully in-house, calling this same movement the P9200. But you're still gambling a little bit if you buy one. And that willingness to gamble makes people respect you more, which makes you very cool. Like the person driving around a vintage car. I know you put in some work to get it, maintain it, and are taking on higher risk in exchange for that cool factor it gives you. Good on you. So now that I've owned this watch and worn it regularly for almost 5 years, I think it's wonderful. If anything, the design has grown on me over time. I love the little bits of red detailing. I love the new logo. I still look at it and feel like the aesthetics are nearly perfect. And I still go to Panerai's website out of morbid curiosity just to see if they make something better. Boring, boring, boring. Little bit of stolen valor, little carbo tech, subdials with no contrast. I never feel like I see something that's comparable. Panerai's do look good, but the Anonimo feels like the evolution of that design, whereas the Luminors look like the first-gen models that are now just a little dated and a little bland. Plus, the Militaire's color scheme, and we're getting a little bit into fashion here, but it also goes ideally with certain fits, which has made me realize just how great of a purchase it actually was. It so often feels like the only correct choice in certain scenarios. Ivory dials are only moderately popular, but to me, it feels like a collection must-have. While Panerai finishes their watch cases to a slightly higher degree, I definitely won't say that about Panerai movements. Anonimo compares favorably with regard to build quality and materials, and is noticeably above with regard to design and looks, in my humble opinion. If you take MSRP out of the equation, the basic trade-off to me is a higher level of finishing on a Panerai case versus a more interesting design on an Anonimo. The elephant in the room, though, is if you care about what other enthusiasts think. If you go on an Anonimo subforum, you will quickly see that the Anonimisti overwhelmingly love the old version of the brand, Firenze, and hold disdain or ambivalence for the new Swiss incarnation, SA. While I am generally not a Richemont fanboy, and I love my independence, I am one of what feels like a very small number of people that actually prefer the new Swiss version of Anonimo to both Panerai and Anonimo Firenze, and by a good margin too. To me, it's not even close. These new designs are legit. Panerai is boring and shady, and Firenze looks like a bunch of janky prototypes. If this brand had stayed in Firenze and kept churning out rapid-fire designs in their original style, I doubt I would own one. Now the good part. Let's rate the Anonimo Militaire Chrono Vintage using the patented Hathaway 6-segment system, which will unequivocally show, via numbers, how good this watch actually is. The first half of the ratings are more objective measurements that show the overall quality of the timepiece, while the second half are more existential, intangible qualities, starting with build quality. The case is well made from durable 316L stainless steel. The aged calf leather strap is quite supple and luxurious and barely shows wear after many uses. Construction is solid with luxury materials, but there's room to elevate them. The construction is perfectly serviceable for daily wear, but it isn't designed to be a go anywhere, do anything type of watch. 6. Movement. This features a Swiss-made Solida 300, which is a good movement. Commonplace, but solid. Durable, easy to service. Unimpressive power reserve. And anything Dubois de Praz is good, including this chronograph module on top. It's far from the best they can do, with squishy pushers and not the snappiest feeling when resetting, but definitely serviceable. And the entire movement is modular, meaning they stuck a chronograph on top of an already finished movement, as opposed to being built as a chronograph from the ground up. Nothing mind-blowing here. If the grade was pass-fail, this would be a clear pass. 4. Finishing. The case finishing is pretty good with a mix of surfaces, high polished bezel, vertically brushed case sides. It looks nice. It's all done by machine and it doesn't have a ton of nuance or chamfering, but definitely not bad at this price point. 4. Now getting into more elastic categories. Design. It's hard for me to find much I dislike about this watch's aesthetics, be it the width, the thickness, the proportions, the dial layout. If you told me you could make the crown guard more secure by placing it at 6 o'clock or something where it used to be on older models, I'd actually say just keep it on top. Looks much better there. The one clear change I think needs to be made is to make it a solid case back. Very typical for this style of watch, and having the movement exposed is the one thing that reminds me that this is definitely not high-end horology. Seeing this unfinished Solida is just reminding me, oh yeah, this is a pretty cheap movement, huh? Like, there's no need to show off your equivalent of a 4-cylinder Honda engine. I'm not mad at it, just don't come to me bragging about it. That aside, this design is very close to being a perfect execution of the large Panerai-style tonneau case sport watch. While this was not Anonimo's high watermark with regards to financial success, with regard to design, I think it absolutely is. 9. Novelty. If we're talking movement, zero innovation, off the shelf. But if we're talking looks, there's not a lot of pillowcase watches out there, and if you're shopping Luminor styles, there's virtually zero comps. Love it or hate it, from a visual standpoint, there are very, very few watches that look like this or even close. So points on that front. 4. And the most important category, va-va-voom. What's the deep inner feeling you have coming across this watch? What does it do to your lizard brain? Well, very little with regards to brand or heritage. Definitely some impact with appearances, both positive and negative. It's polarizing, with some people just straight up actively disliking it. It will score points from people who aren't watch enthusiasts and just find the look interesting, or eccentric collectors who just love weird shit. 4. With Panerai struggling through controversy and declining sales and Anonimo barely hanging on, it feels crazy to do a video like this. I can't imagine there's more than a single-digit number of people in the world currently cross-shopping these two brands right now. Anonimo is supposed to be the brand for people who love Panerai styling but aren't jazzed about the company or just want a different iteration of it. As a watch, the Militaire was just polished enough to not be brutish and just odd enough that it sparks joy. Based on how little is going on with the brand today, one pet theory I have for the Richemont buyout is that Richemont was legitimately concerned about Anonimo eventually growing to become real competition to Panerai. With Anonimo having all of Panerai's original watchmakers and their rockstar CEO, it seems not completely unfounded. In an alternate turn of events, if Swatch were to have purchased Anonimo instead and given them a budget to compete with Panerai's marketing, plus being able to lean on the fact that they have their old CEO and team, that could have put Richemont in a very tough spot. But Anonimo is not even profitable when Richemont came by, so they surely got a bargain basement price for it. Even if they didn't plan on doing anything with the brand, it could very well be a better safe than sorry insurance approach. Better to pay a few million for the brand now, even if that's money down the drain, than to let it grow into a competitor that tears down one of your biggest rivals. The less conspiratorial approach is that after changing ownership in 2011 and basically going dormant for a few years, Richemont was able to scoop it up for pennies on the dollar on the assumption that they were buying Anonimo's small but diehard fan base with it. And when the Anonimo fans turned against Richemont after they paid a bunch of money to streamline the designs, they were left with a brand no one knew and no fan base, making it more or less a wasted purchase and starting from zero. I really hope that Anonimo manages to stay alive because it's so unique, but it will likely have to leave Richemont to do so. I would love to hear from anyone who owns an Anonimo, the very small number of you that exist. I feel like people have an odd, almost inexplicable connection to this quirky brand, even though most have never even heard of it. I also feel particularly out of place with my own tastes, if I'm completely honest, because they fly so contrary to everyone else's. So I would love to hear people's thoughts on what I consider to be the ultimate cushion case watch.